And I think that's where, we go back to what's been true about absolutely everything, farming. Everyone has to farm their little piece of land. You cannot just like have one company farming the whole world. Companies, every company is good at something. One company is good at cutting trees and one company is good at building computers and selling burgers. Like you cannot create a company that will generalize at everything. In the same way, I strongly believe that the sum of the intelligence of all the interconnected APIs and nodes, if we think of it as like a Bitcoin network, all the
Mhm.
nodes talking to each other and orchestrating and reaching consensus on what's a good output, I think that's the path to AGI. And so that's where I think we have a lot to contribute as the crypto space, as the decentralized.
Yeah. Yeah, and to add to that, because I agree with what you're saying about the single model, general knowledge about everything. That, yeah, exactly. That's not doesn't seems the right direction, or at least doesn't seems what will be. And John Carmack 2 years ago mentioned something about we're just six intuition, six like a breakthrough before getting to AGI. And breakthrough like one was transformer, the other one reasoning, and I believe there's another one recently that came up with the R star, the 7B model that is like matches O1 at math. And so it's like it's a small model that can solve a very narrow problem by retraining and rerunning at inference at training time, where instead of like giving a lot of content, a lot of like pre-training data, it's just like creating these Monte Carlo like a tree and test different outcome and then figure out the one that works and then goes back and yeah. So yeah, it feels like we're going into this like a multi-expert, like this MOE kind of like architecture. Now, it's interesting. Another thing is will be a decentralized one. So, for example, on like a decentralized blockchain, and we have all these different experts just living around, or will be like a
Hey everyone, welcome to another conversation on NEWFORUM, a research network for open learning in the arts and sciences, pioneering a new culture for internet design. In this episode, exploring Web3, DAI, and agents, Sofiane and I are joined by Fed, founder and CEO of Flow, an AI agent marketplace. Fed is the organizer of the AI New York community. Fed brings years of experience as a tech and crypto veteran, having been an early engineer and led at Gauntlet Network. He is also the founder of a blockchain DAO in 2017. So welcome, Fed. Super excited to dive into the conversation with you.
hello. Yeah,
Hello.
very excited to be here.
Nice. So, Fed, you've had an incredible journey as a tech and crypto veteran, from founding a blockchain DAO in 2017 to leading innovations with Flow and organizing the AI New York community. Can you start by sharing a bit about what drew you to the intersection of AI and blockchain, as well as decentralization, and how your vision has evolved over the years?
Mhm. Yeah, of course. Well, I'll start a little bit before that because I think that leads to how I got even into the Web3 space. I'm an engineer and I've been an engineer for a very long time. And then sometime in 2011, I read the Bitcoin white paper. And at the time, I think it was 12 or something around there, there was also the Occupy Wall Street. So I was in the movement of like uh, the cypherpunk and um, all the hacker and the bank movement about banks are bad, inflation. So the question of what's money came like super early. And then I was like in a bunch of hacker meetups. And so that got my attention for the Bitcoin white paper. Then at some point, OPSEC, so I'm not sharing the details there. But at some point, I got into the Bitcoin community and Bitcoin community side of things. And comes 2017, I started the Lightning Network meetup. It's a group of a community in New York that eventually got merged with the NYC Bitcoiners. And at the time, also, I was also building other product, but I was already in the Web3 and Ethereum space. And my co-founder was into the healthcare space, and he was had this idea of revolutionize how healthcare works. Pretty relevant today with the Luigi Mangione and all that, the United Healthcare drama. And so at the time, we tried to create like a Uber or Airbnb for healthcare. And the way we thought to do that was creating a DAO that could onboard the doctors, patients, and then use like a payment system. At the time, there was not stable coins yet. So it was very difficult to do the finding a way to send transaction and not having price changes. But anyway, from there, going all the way, I joined other Web3 companies. Then 4 years ago, I joined Gauntlet as an early engineer and become the team lead of the platform team. Gauntlet today is a unicorn and is basically the market leader in DeFi security and treasury management and risk analysis and parameter optimization. So that was like entering the time machine and learning a lot about DeFi. And 2 years ago, I saw the opportunity because I was building the Web3 indexer at Gauntlet. I saw the opportunity of creating the company around this product because basically everyone in the other companies was doing the same thing. They were building this indexer and everyone was building the same thing over and over. And so that was also the time ChatGPT came along. And GPT-2 was already out, but ChatGPT and GPT-3 was what really got everyone into AI. And I'm not one of those people who were in AI before that. I was in machine learning and in data engineering, but not in AI per se, like actual AI. But I had some grasp of the space. And so when ChatGPT came along and Code Copilot for GitHub came along and was completing my code as I was programming, I started getting into this kind of like a flash of when you learn about Bitcoin for the first time and it's a hit you, but you're like, okay, and then you read again and then you start realizing, oh shit, this is changing everything. I had that feeling only a few times. Bitcoin was one, the internet first, then Bitcoin, then the iPhone, and ChatGPT was that moment. Kind of hinted by Code Copilot first, but ChatGPT was like, holy shit, this is huge. And yeah, so I started working on building AI tools for the Web3 indexer, build this AI-driven ETL. Basically, ETLs are complicated. Generally, you have to do back and forth. Now with AI, you can have that part automated. And so, so I started building that and then pivoted about a year and a half ago into building AI agents. And today we're building AI agents. It's a marketplace / launchpad / AI tools platform. And I can go into those details as much as you want. And a year and a half ago, also, other interesting thing to mention here. New York is an amazing city for meetups and networking events. I started going to these AI events, and they were all very networky, where you just meet people and chat about random thing and then chat about AI, but not really highly technical. Where San Francisco has the best technical meetups. So with a friend of mine, we were like, okay, we need some technical meetup in New York. Do you know any? No. And then we decided to meet at his place. And so 5 of us got together, started talking about AI papers, research papers, project code. and we met twice a month, and then we become 6 and 7, and now we have a community in New York that we're like around 150 to 200 people, but all top tier engineers, founders, builders. There's some VC as well now. Um, yeah, with like a super veteran people like Alex Atala from OpenSea that now started OpenRouter. Um, and yeah, I can list a bunch of names there. But yeah, so now that's what my focus is: the company, the AI community, and I also write monthly these AI updates, once, twice a month, and I post them on Twitter. So yeah, so right now I'm living and breathing AI Web3.
That's quite fascinating how a lot of people from the NFT space got into AI. And I'm curious, like, what's the kind of trajectory that takes you from, yeah, selling NFTs to getting into AI? Um, and yeah, actually, I'm very curious about how do you see, so for you, the LLM is like a breakthrough that basically created this awakening. How do you see the evolution to agents, starting from, those like models that respond to you as like a chatbot in a chat, to it becoming a superior version of that? And what does it mean? And what's the kind of area that you are focusing on with Flow?
Okay. Uh, yes, let me address all that. So the NFT, the path from NFT to AI agents, it's interesting because I think the two are kind of like orthogonal to each other. There's not really much. Um, I mean, there's some people talking about tokenizing agent, but that feels like a stretch. I'm not sure exactly what that is. And recently, Paul wrote something about the NFT market is way bigger, has more potential than the AI agent markets. And I kind of agree on that because NFT, at their core, they started as a tokenization for, CryptoKitty punks and like images online. But I think that's just the memification phase. In the next couple of years, I can see like the tokenization will start getting into real life things like real estate, mortgages, insurance, and I think BlackRock already hinted on that, and they very likely will probably start like creating some kind of like think about the subprime but in NFT. And if you had something like that, could we had the 2008 collapse? Maybe, but there's some transparency there that might make them better. And yeah, so the NFT, I think, are definitely more focused on the tokenization side of things, which there might be some correlation as well with agents. And the agents, different story there, but I think the path from NFT to agents, it's that everyone is building some marketplace now, and it's like there was a marketplace for NFT, so the natural adaptation is like you just, instead of selling NFT, you sell agents now, like virtuals, for example. Um, and then, well, virtuals is also an interesting beast because virtuals also introduced this concept of a single agent with a bonding curve. So each agent has a token, and so now you can actually, it's almost like kind of like similar to the fractionalization of NFT. So you can create these agents and you can buy as much token as you want for an agent. Um, how what we do at Flow, what we focus at Flow actually is not definitely there's no NFT involved. We've been thinking about maybe the NFT could be the sign-up key for buying your agent and edit the agent. Other idea were like using some DAO mechanism, some token mechanism with proposals. So we have many ideas there, but we're still centralized. So all of that, it's something for the future. For the present, where we've been focusing on is launching this agent for the Web3 ecosystem. And so think of, we've been talking about DeFi plus AI, so DFAI. I don't know how you even did we get to consensus on how you spell that? I don't know. And so we're trying to build this DeFi agent where you can ask questions like, show me the volume, the liquidity of Uniswap for every pool that has USDT and ETH, for example. And so the agent can connect to Etherscan, can connect to CoinGecko, DeFi Llama, and other platform, and then can aggregate all this data and create dashboards. And then we can put these dashboards in what we call spaces. And spaces are like think do analytics kind of thing, where you do your research and then you put that in the space. So this is the how we got to the first round of agents, and now we start building intents on top of this, and intents like swap tokens from all my wallets across like all chain into Polygon, for example. And to be fair, this is like a kind of a silly use case. It's something that you might do just once. It's not something that is repeatable, but I think it's a really good use case for start testing intents, an action like for an agent, and connecting and get comfortable also on connecting MetaMask together. So the focus right now is in building this marketplace where you can launch your own agent, integrate the agent on different protocols, and then you can run these intents. And we'll do a really comprehensive demo for this at eDember.
Cool. And so do you see the evolution of intent in terms of like how much, how big is the gap of intent? So, if you think about the gap in terms of the amount of steps, between
Mhm.
what you want to achieve and all the things that are needed for that thing to happen, how many times should the human get involved in the
Mhm.
process? And so today we are living in a world where you kind of have to like always like go back and forth with your
Mhm.
AI model. So like each
Mhm.
step you have to be there. And then we're gonna start to have like maybe 3, 4, 5 steps. So like, go to my Gmail, find the email of that person, organize a call, blah, blah, blah. And then the ultimate level is like, give me a happy life. It's like figure it
Yes.
out and take care of all the rest. I need resource. You know what's good. You know what my taste is. Give me like the best food possible at my door. Organize, my um, uh, yeah, basically. So the last thing that remained is so okay. That's the extreme version. What do you see are like the things that you guys are focusing on? So there is like the crypto use case. How like what's the dream like the dream intent gap that you see in the coming, let's say, 18 months?
Yeah. Okay. A lot to unroll here because um, okay, I'm writing down because I want to touch on all these points. So, um, first thing, agents today, we don't really trust them. Let's be honest. ChatGPT, you trust it only because you have a quick feedback loop where you give a text, you get the text back, you read it immediately, and then you can use it. Or you can ask to search for something, and when you don't have like the error precision is so small that you don't care if the number are wrong or the data is slightly wrong, you're fine. But when you talk about transactions, you need to be perfect. And so the trust in this case, I think, will come from the workflow for the intents, where the steps will be you ask a question and then you get back a strategy. And the strategy will have all the steps that the agent is going to take for your intents. And in this case, could be I have an image for these that I can share after. But the idea is that you see all the wallets with the arrows that goes from the wallets to the bridges, and then from the bridges to Uniswap, and then you have a MetaMask sign in like a transaction. And so the first step will be human in the loop. And I think agent to be successful, AI company to be successful, will need to have trust, but trust will need more time. Workflow integration, and that will need the UI, and that's what we're building now, a UI that has automation plus human in the loop. Some task that you run, you still need to say yes, no. Some tasks you need to do things like, for example, the restaurants. You're gonna get all these restaurants and you get a list, but then you still need to pick the phone to call them. And maybe some of them have some automation where you can just book it, but some of them you need to pick the phone. And even the selection of saying, okay, let's book this one, you still kind of want to keep some control. And so the workflow will need to be like a mix of human and AI. And so I think that part would be kind of like a semi-automated workflow for the next probably year, maybe even two. But we're moving towards the zero employees companies. Recently, Kyle Samani from Polychain wrote this thesis for 2025 new ideas, and one of them was these zero employees companies. And it's a bit too early, to be honest, but I think it's right on the trend. If you remember, 10 years ago, a company used to have 100 engineers to do like something like, I don't know, mailing automation. And you needed the DevOps, you needed the engineers working on the code, the UI engineers, backend engineers, full stack. You needed the system architect and database engineer. Go 5 years after, you have Kubernetes. You can have a few DevOps that run that and a few engineers. And so we already cut from 100 to like 10, maybe even less. And now today you can do the same thing with probably three because you have Google Cloud, Kubernetes. So there's a lot of like automation that and services that abstract all of that. And the trend is obvious. We're going into the zero employees. But before we get there, I think the AI agent workflow will need to be in this phase where it's like semi automated. And so kind of like the ChatGPT experience. You write something, you get a feedback, and then you go to the next step. I think we're ready to go to kind of like start delegating a little bit more than just that, but we still need to have this immediate feedback loop. Otherwise, it's not gonna be successful, I think.
Right, right. Now let's take a metaphor. So let's say that
Mhm,
the AI development is a train, and that train is moving at a certain pace. And it's difficult to estimate, is the train going to slow down? Is it going to accelerate? At what speed is it actually going? Because our mind is playing games with us. Like we look at things and we are like, wow, that's so smart. But try to ask, just a simple task to like all those top, like almost AGI models, like draw me a Wojak. You will have a lot of fun. Those things cannot
Yes.
do everything. Like they are very far from it, but still they are impressive in some ways. And so it's kind of very difficult to like get a sense of like how smart they are and how fast this whole thing is moving.
Mhm,
And so that begs the question, do we need to build, let's say, all the DevOps around those things? Do we need to build the engineering? Should we do RAGs? Should we do all this infrastructure? Or should we just build and assuming that models are going to do a lot more than what they do today? And so what's the
mhm,
part that should be built? What's the part that should be, okay, let's just assume that in 2 years from now it will be like 100x smarter and so on. So you see the train moving, you are in your car and you're like, okay, at what station should I jump on the train? Should I, take it right here, or should I start like rushing into the next station, or should I just try to catch it now, considering the earlier you get, the more expensive the ticket? So how much should you do by yourself, or how much should you just give up and be like, okay, I'm going to trust that the train is going to go super fast and it's going to do everything? And I think that's kind of the biggest challenge right now for everyone in
mhm,
the space, regardless if you are a builder, a developer, an investor, an entrepreneur. You're like asking yourself, how fast is the thing I'm doing going to be commodified? And so some people are saying, okay, if you want to prepare for a post-AGI world, you should start to think about what are your wishes, because that's the only thing that AI cannot do for you. And so write down all the things that you want and try to focus on that, because all the things that you will want, whether it's writing books, whether it's writing an entire academic system, whether it's building a company and so on, is going to be able to do it for you. So what's your take
Mhm.
on that? Like, how do you see your current tool and technology at Flow AI, um, yeah, positioning itself versus that train?
Oh my God. I love this question. Amazing question. Especially the analogy of the train is something that I've been thinking about a lot. You guys probably are familiar. The way we feel is we don't feel static environment, static temperature. We only feel the delta, the difference. So if you take you wash your hand and you increase the water, like the heat, you start feeling it. But at some point, if you stop, you get used and you didn't even notice anything. In the car, acceleration, you can feel it. But if you're like go at 100 miles an hour, after you don't notice it. So right now we're in this train that is already going really fast. But what's interesting is that this is one of those technology where everyone on Earth right now is like focusing on building around the same technology from different angles. You have NVIDIA building chips. You have other company building hardware. You have a mathematician, researcher building algorithm for AI. You got engineering building a company around that. You have all the SaaS, they're all trying to build an AI. And so you have like everyone focused on that. Government, DoD, and they're also like focused on this. So we have everyone working on this, and I think it's compounding because not only we get faster models, we also get models that are cheaper to run, cheaper to train. And then you also get NVIDIA launching Blackwell and launching GPU that are like 10 or 100 times faster. And so it's like the scale law at this point, it's like it's becoming almost exponential because you have the it's almost like if we are in this train, the hardware, and inside there's another train, the software, and then you have all these different train inside. And so the acceleration is like it's not just accelerating once, we're multiple accelerating, and we're getting kind of like comfortable with the acceleration. And it kind of become normal because you talk with ChatGPT like 4, you're like, oh, this is stupid. I mean, it's crazy. Can you imagine 5 years ago talking with ChatGPT on the phone and like actual talking, and it's like, the fuck? It's insane. I think it's insane. And when we talk about AGI, we're kind of like coping. We already have AGI to some degree. It's not. It's at the beginning. It's not as powerful, but you give any problem and you get some answer. Might be wrong. You might need to do trick back and forth, but pretty much is like someone who's just like a I mean, it's already way better than most humans at many tasks and narrow tasks, especially. But even in the general task, it's probably already in the 100 IQ level, which, yes, it will do errors in math. Show me how many people don't do error in math. I mean, you might have the top percentile, but I'm sure like most people will make mistakes. So the general intelligence is something that we're already very close to. And so what should we be building? That's a hard question that I've been thinking a lot. And we actually had a meetup just focused on AGI and focus on going towards AGI. Where are the modes? What should we be building? And you can ask me after about the mods because I have some topic there as well. But um, the way we've been approaching what we need to build is we think of um, GPT-4 is here, and if you build anything that OpenAI will build, they will steamroll you because it's using STEM word. Don't build the AI 8, don't build the chatbot because we're gonna steamroll you. You might remember when the PDF reader they got all destroyed because ChatGPT came up with the GPTs and you can upload the PDFs. Now the next step is they're adding agents. They're going incrementally, but they're doing that. And so the next level is, does it make sense to build agents if they're doing that? And it's like a big question. And so the way we've been framing how do we build for a startup to remain relevant in the next 2 years is you want to think of building what GPT-7 will be using. and whatever it would be called, maybe O4, O5, whatever. But the point is, instead of building what's cool today, you need to think three generation ahead. And what I mean, we will have AI agents. We know that for sure. OpenAI shared the roadmap of like AI agents level, so we know that definitely we go there. They shared that they're building AGI, and AGI would be probably this year would be officially AGI. And when I say officially, it means there's this test from Francois Cholet that is like the ARC test, where it's kind of like the Turing test, but the Turing test is like you speak with people and it's like, oh yeah, I believe this is a human. You speak with a robot and you say, I believe this is a human. Turing test already passed, but it's not very strict. So the Francois Cholet test, the ARC test, it's a set of hard questions that if AGI solve at 100%, I think there's $1 million attached to that. So there's also like a price. And yeah, we're at 85% with GPT-03. They didn't launch it yet, but I mean, we're there. We're basically there. And now Francois Cholet has been saying, okay, the ARC test is actually dumb. Let's do a harder test. Like, yeah, sure, but that doesn't change that we already hit AGI at that point. And so the way we've been thinking about for Flow is building tools that AGI would be using, or well, tools that, and then we need to define what AGI means, because I think we might have a slightly different definition. So tools that GPT-7 will be using, and the other thing is everyone in the space is building some sort of RAG, some sort of like tools. And so what can differentiate is also the vertical. You want to be focused on a narrow vertical because yes, OpenAI will build the RAG, will build agent, but if you can build an agent that solve a very specific problem, then you might have a better chance because they won't have that much resources to solve something specific. And so, yeah, and yeah, it's a struggle that I think every company is running on right now. It's like, how do we keep relevant? Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite funny because I think we are way overestimating where tech giants are in terms of achieving intelligence. So there is this thing when you watch a movie or when you read a book or when you watch a movie or all those things where your brain deep inside knows that it's not reality, but
Mm.
you want to feel it, you want to be
Yeah.
entertained. So you sit down in the
Hmm.
cinema, you look at the screen and you're like, sure, the guy didn't really die, but I don't want to hear that. I want to just sit down and enjoy and trick my brain into thinking that that thing
Yeah.
is really happening. I think there is a lot of that with AI currently. And so I'm gonna push back a little bit on the AGI here. I think
Hmm.
that most of the value comes from the prompts that you type, from the back and forth, from the data that they found online. And I think that those things are very, very far from intelligent and they are very far from generalization. So if you take, for example, like the evolution from GPT-2 to GPT-3 to
Hmm.
GPT-4, like you have a big jump with scaling. So like
Hmm.
think of it as like there is a distribution of possible good responses. And so it's kind of like an S curve, meaning at the start, you have not enough scale to cover a lot of cases.
Hmm.
Then, and it's kind of, we could think of it also as like the bell curve. So you have a bell curve of situations where some situations are so stupid and so basic that they never really get asked, never been, addressed. And some things
Hmm.
are extremely complex and intelligent and so on. And in the middle, you have all the things like the average stuff for day-to-day
Hmm.
life. And so when you train GPT-3, you get closer to covering a lot of that middle bell curve. When
Hmm.
you go from 3 to 3.5 and you use then RLHF, you cover much more use cases from the user base of ChatGPT. And so then like all the other ones are playing catch up with ChatGPT. So Google was late. They had that BERT project for a long time, but they never really released it on consumer product. And then what happens is you get into the other edge, like the second edge of the bell curve, which is all the topics that are novel, that are complex, that are niche, that don't have so much data about them, that are very difficult to verify and validate because it's like, the edge of everything. As the knowledge race is accelerating, meaning everyone is increasingly accessing knowledge, we are producing net new knowledge at a pace that's unprecedented. And so the question is for these kind of technologies to cover all of them, all the niches in all the domains, all the areas, whether it's, health or like all the topics, I think it's going to be impossible, which is why we haven't seen GPT-5 yet. We haven't seen Claude 3.5 Opus. Instead of that, we are moving to systems that try to not pre-train on all the possible outcomes because the number increases exponentially. Like the amount of cases, once you get out of that middle bell curve, it's like so big that there is no model that could be big enough. Then they try to do this like mixture of experts to like save like on the compute power. But over time, it didn't really work. And so now the new thing is test time compute. It's like we are going to do the computation, test time compute, test time training, like test time adaptation. So you have different flavors of that, and it's starting to emerge. And actually, the big winners of the ARC prize are, labs that were doing this kind of stuff, like, doing things at test time, readjusting the weights at test time, which is test time training. And so it shows that first, those things are far from covering all the the distribution of possible good outputs. And on top of that, I believe that there is a challenge in terms of how do you validate knowledge? It's not just about scraping, but it's about in a pile of, let's say, 10 terabytes of text, which bit of text is actually better than the other. And so you have some indications of that, which is kind of, if you try to move towards the center of the bell curve, then yes, you will be, finding the average of everything. So if you do an average of everything, it's kind of in those TV games where they say like, the majority, like the call to the majority of the audience, This works very well. But what if most people are wrong, or what if actually, the data is you don't have enough data about certain topics, and that's where all the juice is gonna come, and that's where I think, to me, the future is how do we, as the decentralized AI space, come up with AGI not as a model, but AGI as a layer of the internet, meaning having all the web services, all the like deterministic, probabilistic, predictive, all the forms of computations that speak a shared language and that can be that can orchestrate, route tasks, and so on. And I think that's where we go back to what's been true about absolutely everything. Farming. Everyone has to farm their little piece of land. You cannot just like have one company farming the whole world. Companies, every company is good at something. One company is good at cutting trees and one company is good at building computers and selling burgers. Like you cannot create a company that will generalize at everything. In the same way, I strongly believe that the sum of the intelligence of all the interconnected APIs and nodes, if we think of it as like a Bitcoin network, all the nodes talking to each other and orchestrating and reaching consensus on what's a good output, I think that's the path to AGI. And so that's where I think we have a lot to contribute as the crypto space, as the decentralized.
Yeah. Yeah, and to add to that, because I agree with what you're saying about the single model, general knowledge about everything. Yeah, exactly. That's not doesn't seems the right direction, or at least doesn't seems what will be. And John Carmack 2 years ago mentioned something about we're just six intuition, six like a breakthrough before getting to AGI. and break through. Like one was transformer, the other one reasoning, and I believe there's another one recently that came up with the R star, the 7B model that is like matches O1 at math. And so it's like it's a small model that can solve a very narrow problem by retraining and rerunning at inference at training time, where instead of like giving a lot of content, a lot of like pre-training data, it's just like creating these Monte Carlo like a tree and test different outcome and then figure out the one that works and then goes back and yeah. So yeah, it feels like we're going into this multi-expert, like this MOE kind of like architecture. Now, it's interesting. Another thing is will be a decentralized one. So, for example, on like a decentralized blockchain, and we have all these different experts just living around, or will be like a kind of an open AI architecture where inside the model you have all these experts, and you have like a swarm of experts that runs all centralized. And we had this kind of conversation yesterday also about yesterday we ran the AI NYC event around AI agents, and one question that we had in the room was, and by the way, we run with an AI Socratic methodology, so everyone in the room participate to the conversation. And one question that came up was, we'll have like the fridge to be smart, and you open it and you have a butter inside, and you can talk to the butter. I mean, at which point do you need to have agents? And someone came up with a very interesting insight. It's like, well, anything that is like deterministic, that should be an API. That should be something that you just use it. That's it. There shouldn't be intelligence there. Otherwise, it's like it becomes everything intelligent. It becomes like unnavigable. And so we might have these like a layer of intelligence that communicate with everything else, and then we'll have these MOE where AGI probably will arise from kind of like a social network, the same way ants become like smart as a colony, and human become dumber as a colony for some reason. We might have something like that. We don't become dumber. I'm just kidding here, but somehow, sometime we do. I want to touch on another thing. When you were saying yes, you give all this data, and the model, like when you give too much data, how the model knows which one is the important part. Something interesting in a white paper reading that we did some times ago about RAG, super fun. So because most of the training happen through white paper and other like blog posts or any kind of content we write. Any content we write, the beginning of the content, great value. The end of the content, like conclusion, amazing. The center, a lot of random crap. And so the agent, kind of like the intelligence in the LLM, kind of like by training and reading this thing, learn that what need to give attention is the top and the bottom. So when you build a rug, you want to make sure that if you give or when you do prompt engineering, you need to make sure that the most important things is at the top and at the bottom. Anything in the middle, you need to understand that is like the LLM might like skim through it, and that's super visible when you do like a larger context. But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
It's a
super interesting.
fascinating thing.
Yeah, very fascinating. And as it's been really exciting listening to your insights. And as we wrap up, comes the end of our amazing conversation. I'd like to ask you one quick question. So if you could solve one major challenge in decentralized AI today, what would it be?
I need to think about this one second. Well, there's many. Well, there's the one we're talking about was a digital identity. We need to know who's who, is a robot, is a human. That's one. Another one will be, well, coordination, but blockchain is really good at that. The big, I think, it seems to be a recurring problem in any engineering and AI is like data. We need the really good data because that makes the big difference. Um, I mean, the main one I could say at the human level is like the onboarding. We need to figure out how to onboard the users and figure out how we all can use the blockchain, but for something that makes sense and can be actually like a zero sum or at least a net positive for everyone. Because think about yeah, we don't want to do another like a Pareto where we have like 1% owning everything and the rest don't. And yes, blockchain changed that a little bit by introducing rules that apply the same for everyone, and so that's good. But I'm I think yeah, in the onboarding we need to make sure that we figure out ways for um like uh, train or educate people to like learn how to use the blockchain in a way that makes sense. And it's both a training education kind of process, but it's also like building UI that are like Polymarket, for example, UI that are transparent. You just use it, you don't even know it's there. Or when you turn the electricity, you turn the light. I mean, there's a framework of cables and things, and you never think about that. Or the water, even. You just open the faucet and that's it. And I think, yeah, we need to get to that point. But I think we need to actively make sure that we push towards like more equity and more yeah, we need to make the world a better place and to make sure that blockchain it's not just like another tool for control, which is one of my worst nightmare, I guess. AI and blockchain can go really utopic way or very in some really shitty dystopian way. So yeah.
Yeah, we hope it doesn't get to that. And yeah, this has been amazing conversation. And I'm wondering where our listeners can find you on your socials.
Yeah, let me share with you. So I'm on Twitter. I'm FEULF, Feul. I'm mostly Feul everywhere on most channel. And then my company, Flow AI, is flowai.xyz. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Fed. This was incredible.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.